Hi again, everybody. So we've just outputted our MP4 file from the Adobe Media Encoder. Okay, so previously what we had was we had our where's our footage? Oh yeah, the VR output MP4. So here was our VR output from After Effects. As we can see, that was the 7.94 gigabytes one. That's the one we outputted from After Effects. But then we've just done this one, and this one is now 102 meg, so that's a lot smaller, and it's also an MP4 file. So that's the one we're going to be using. Okay, so this is our uni ungraded rectangular VR output to VR2 output MP4, and I'm going to drag this over into the side here, and then this should now be in a format which the Insta Studio likes. As you can see, it's playing it, it's fine. If you try dragging the others in, it would say, oh, it's corrupted, I don't like it. Okay, so if you remember then this one, what we can do is we can either edit an echo rectangular and actually edit it as a 360 video, but that's not what we're doing, because what we're going to be doing today is turning this 360 video into a standard 1920 by 1080 video that we're going to be able to use on YouTube. So what we're going to do then is we're going to go to the free capture tab at the top here, okay, and we're going to set our playhead at about the 16-second mark, okay, and that's when we want our, because that's where I've disappeared. So you can see now I've just been running off over here, and I've hidden behind this bush at about the 16-second mark. So that's where we're going to kind of play from. Okay, so at 16 seconds then what we're going to do is we're going to click this little button here, and we're going to add a keyframe. Okay, and in this keyframe what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we can adjust this later, but we're going to have the main entrance sort of roughly in the center, and we're going to go to our little planet like so. Okay, and so what we're going to do now is we're going to create that sort of whirl effect that we're going to sort of add ourselves into a bit later on. Okay, now there's a couple of ways that we can try and achieve this, but the first and most obvious one is to use the tilt angle. So obviously the tilt, sorry, not the tilt angle, the there we go, pan angle. Okay, so we can rotate it around with the pan angle like so. Okay, but if you if I just try and show you what happens here if we use this, all right, let's move along to about here, and we'll add another keyframe, and we're going to add the flat transition like so, but we're also going to change our let's start with a different pan angle. So let's try and do something like that, for example. Now I mean I could just show you what to do, but I want to show you why we're doing it, because it's important that you understand. Because basically what's going to happen is if we start our if I play this through now, if we start our effect using the tilt, so the pan tool, can you see what's happening is that we're getting too close to the buildings, and obviously it doesn't look too bad because I haven't produced too much movement, but actually what it does is when we're adding a full 360 degree turn, it means that we get far too close to the buildings too quickly, and that's not what we want, because we want to be able to sort of have our subject kind of relatively straight centered in the frame all the way through. Okay, so we're not going to use the tilt function. I'm going to delete that keyframe. I'm going to come back to this keyframe, this first one. Okay, and instead of that, so our pan angle, we're going to bring our pan angle back to the top like so. So reduce it back down like that to like that, so it's about center. And instead what we're going to do is we're going to use this one, the roll angle. Now again, the problem with this is we can do this sort of a number of ways. But if we start off with the roll angle on 0, and then we go to like 36, so we take 20 seconds, and we add a thing here, and we sort of say, right, okay, this is now going to go to 180 degrees, like so. Okay, we've used the roll angle now. We've basically got the same effect as the pan for now, because it's doing the same thing. It's rotating our footage around an axis. Okay, but so we've got our footage there at the start, and then we're rotating it round. Okay. The problem is it kind of wants to default into this clockwise motion. So even if we manage to get this rotation clockwise, when we then add another effect in later on, it's going to bounce back and go counterclockwise again. It's all very confusing. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to come back to the start. And like I say, I know I've been through a couple of sort of slightly don't do this options, but I just want to show you, because this has been a bit of trial and error on my part to try and get this working the way I want it to. So I want to show you what not to do first in order to show you what we are actually going to do. So we're going to start off with our main entrance at the top of the video, because that's where our figure is going to be stood. Okay, but instead of starting at 0 on the roll angle, what we're going to do is we're going to go to 360, and it's going to have the same effect because it's still with the main entrance at the top. Okay, but effectively we've asked it now to wind back a full rotation before we start. And what this means is that now when we go to 36 seconds and add another keyframe, so I'm bouncing on 20 seconds each time, we add another keyframe. Now I'm going to go to this roll angle and I'm going to go to 180. And this now means that my footage has gone from having effectively been wound back a full rotation. So now we're starting off with this nice smooth roll. Okay, and so that's looking good so far. All right, and what it then means is basically what would have happened is if we didn't have this first, if we'd started off with 0, and it's very peculiar, it's just one of those vagaries of this system. When we tried to then do the next half of this shot where we start to zoom in, it would go back the other way again. It's all very peculiar. Okay, so we're now on 180. From 360 we've gone down to 180. We're now going to go to 56 seconds, so this is another 20 seconds on, like so. Okay, and we're now going to put in another keyframe, and this time we're going to have roll angle at 0. Okay, and we're also going to switch now to a standard 1080 view rather than the little planet view. And finally, because that's a little bit high in the frame, what I'm also now going to do is I'm just going to tilt this down by about sort of 14 so that our figure is stood sort of in a pleasing composition in the frame. Okay, and what this now means is that we can start with our footage here on the little planet, and as we come down to the very bottom we get this nice smooth rotation now as we start to make that movement. And of course what's happening is, unlike the previous one where we were using the pan, and I didn't really show you that properly, but basically what would have happened is we'd be far too close to these buildings too quickly. Instead of that, what's happening is we've got our figure in a nice kind of smooth centralized rotation all the way through the frame, so the figure's always central and it gives the shot that really dramatic look that we're looking for. Okay, so I'm going to leave it like that now. I mean, the key to smoothness with any of these things is just adding only a few keyframes. So I've only got 3 keyframes in here, so we can ignore all this stuff. We're not going to be using that. So we're going to rotate our footage around like so, and then when we get to the end like this, then we've now got it in a position where once it gets to the bottom, we then get this nice smooth whirl into the shot. But our character, if you imagine, our character is now going to be roughly the same sort of size and roughly centered in our frame all the way through, and that now means that we can get this dramatic shot that we want. Okay, so what we're now going to do then is, and we're happy with the shot like that, that's cool. We're now just going to go to File and Export, and yeah, you can save those changes, and then we're going to output it 1920 by 1080. Up the bit rate, whatever, yeah, H.264 video, yeah, that's fine. And then we're just going to click OK, and that should now output that. And this is finally the footage that we're now going to put into After Effects, and we're going to track our character on top of it. Okay, so I shall stop recording this bit of the video and I shall join you in the next one where we will start tracking our character into our source footage. Okay.